Hey guys, welcome to another React JS project. In this video, we are gonna build and deploy a static web application using React JS, tailwind CSS, framer motion as well as GSAP. We will then deploy it in Netlify so you can share it in your portfolio. So this is the banner part of the project. We will use a tool to generate a clip path to make this shape and use framer motion to make text animation. The next part is about component. We have a title, description and a button in this part. If I scroll down, you can see it has a sticky position. You will learn how to make this behavior at an easy way using GSAP. In the next part, we will have a component with cloud animation. We are going to make this cloud animation with just JavaScript and CSS animation. If I scroll down, you can see some blog post cards here. In this part, we will generate a clip path again using our tool. And you will learn about Flexbox more deep, as well as how to use even and odd design in CSS. After this part, we will work on theme component. In this part, we will use CSS Grid to make auto-responsive cards in CSS without using media query. In the last part, we will work on gallery images. We will again use CSS Grid to display our images responsively. And once we are done with the last component, I will show you how to make this arrow. So if I click this arrow, it will jump to the beginning of our page. Finally, I will show you how to store your code in GitHub and deploy it in Netlify. Alright guys, I hope this video will be helpful for you. Before we begin building this project, make sure to like the video and give a subscribe to my channel. Okay guys, welcome back. So the first thing which we need to do is we need to generate a new React file. So in this case we are gonna use a Vite. Now I'm in VS Code. All you need to do is just go to Google Chrome and just look for Vite for React JS. Okay, now click this link. Now if we scroll down, you can see that there is a create with a latest. Okay, just copy that one. Come back to the VS Code and open a new terminal. Now you need to navigate to your directory. In this case, we are gonna navigate to desktop. And now once you are in your directory, just paste this npm, okay? You need to wait for a little bit. And all you need to do is just write Y, which means yes. Now you need to write your app name. In this case, I'm gonna write travel, and then choose the type of your app. I'm gonna choose the React, and then it's gonna be JavaScript, and that's it. So I'm gonna write cd travel, and just write code and dot, and it will open your React file in a new VS Code page. Okay. Now you can see we have all our necessary files in here. Now all you need to do is just open the terminal and write npm install, and it will generate a node module package for you. Now you can see that we have an app.css in here. I'm gonna open that and delete everything inside. Now I'm gonna navigate to app.jsx. I need to delete these all codes, and instead I'm gonna write hello world. Okay, I'm gonna delete this use state hook and all of these imports that we don't need anymore. Inside this index.css, I'm gonna delete everything and replace that with the new code. As you can see, we have a link for the font, and also we have this tailwind CSS in here. Later on I will install that as well, and some other styling code that I will explain them during the development. Okay, now let's install the tailwind CSS. Just go back to the Google Chrome and search for tailwind for Vite. Now just click this link. You can see there is a link to install the tailwind CSS. Just copy that and come back to VS Code. Inside here, open a new terminal. Okay, and all you need to do is just paste that in here. Now as you can see, we have a new file here, tailwind.config.js, and this file will hold all our initial values for the tailwind CSS. Okay, now you need to come back and you need to replace that with this code. I'm gonna copy that and just replace that. Okay, now you can see we have another code in here which I have already added. Now let's check if our tailwind CSS is working. So I'm gonna come back to app.jsx and change this fragment to h1 or heading 1. Now I'm gonna write class name text read 300. Okay, now you need to write npm run div, and you need to hold the control key and click this link to open it in Google Chrome. Alright, now you can see we have a text with a red color. It means that the tailwind CSS is successfully added in our application. Alright, now we need to come back, and I want to change this function to be an arrow function. Okay, and now we need to have a few images inside our application. So I just copy and paste them here. You can see that I have added a new folder, and this folder is gonna hold all the images that we are gonna use for the backgrounds. And please add it inside the public folder, because we will add that inside the tailwind.config.js. Okay, now all you need to do is just open this tailwind.config.js, and inside this extent you need to copy this code. So you can copy this code from the GitHub. So I will leave the link in the description. Okay, so we don't have anything special here. All we have is just some background images, and also there's a grid template column. Okay, now we are done with the setup. Open the terminal and just write npm run div to start our application. Okay, now our application is open. Okay, now let's build this project. So at first we are gonna make a new folder and call that components. Make sure to put that inside the search. Okay, and inside here the first component is banner, and inside it we need to have a file for this banner. Okay, now you need to generate this React code, and if you don't know what is this, just go to VS Code extensions, and inside here just look for ES7 React Redux React Native. Okay, and if you install that, you will be able to generate this type of code. Alright, okay, now we need to open this app.jsx, and instead of this heading 1, you need to add a fragment here. Okay, and now import this banner in here. Okay, now the banner is displayed. So in the banner we will have a logo, so I'm gonna import that logo image. As you can see, we have a new folder inside the search, and inside the component it's called images. So this image, you can get this folder again from my GitHub, and you can see we have different kind of images, logo, cloud, and some other images for blocks and mountain. Okay, now let's come back to the banner component. Inside here just delete this banner text, and inside we need to have a new div. Inside the div we need to have an image tag. The search is gonna be logo, and this alt is gonna be logo image. And now we need to have a heading 1, and just write this text here. Okay, now you can see we have the logo and text in the browser, and down here we need to have a paragraph with the lorem. Okay, now let's style that using tailwind CSS. So I'm gonna write class name here. The width is gonna be full, the height is gonna be screen. Okay, and we need to add this background banner. So this BG banner means the background image is gonna be banner, and this banner is coming from tailwind.config.js, if you remember that. Now you can see we have this image, BG no repeat and BG center. Alright, now we need to write a BG cover. Okay, now it's looking good. Alright, now we need to generate a clip path for this banner. The way you can generate that, open a new group tab, and in here just look for generate clip path. Okay, and you need to open this clippy. Inside here you can generate any type of clip path you want just by editing this guy, and just copy this code and paste that inside your CSS. So for that I have already generated my clip path, and as you can see inside the index.css I have a clip class name along with this codes. Okay, so I just write this clip inside my banner div. Okay, alright, now you can see that the clip path is applied to our banner. Now let's style the logo and the text. The first thing which we need to do is we need to bring them in the middle of the banner. So in here you need to write flex. Flex direction is gonna be column. Item start, the text is gonna be center, and the gap is going to be 14. The text is going to be white. Now you need to style this div. Just write class name here. The margin top is gonna be 16, and inside the medium screen the margin top is gonna be 7. Okay, now let's style this logo image. Just write class name here. The width is gonna be 13 rem. Okay, now it's looking good. So for the heading one, we need to give a text to 3 XL. For the medium devices, the text is gonna be 6 XL, and for extra large, 2 XL means extra large, the text is gonna be 8 XL. It's gonna be capitalized, and the font is gonna be bold. Font width is gonna be bold. And for medium devices, the width is gonna be 44 rem, and for extra large devices, the width is gonna be 73 rem. Padding from the left and right is gonna be 4. And by the way, we need to add this heading 1 and p tag inside a div. Okay, now you can see that this text is to the left. Just come back to the code, and now you need to write mx auto, which means margin 0 auto. Okay, now you can see the text is in the middle. Alright, now our text needs to have a text shadow. So I already generate that text shadow inside the index.css. You can see that we have a class, it's called text shadow, and I'm gonna write this text shadow inside this heading 1. Okay, now you can see that the text has a shadow. Alright, now let's style this description. Inside the p tag, just write a class name. For the medium devices, the width is going to be 30 rem. For the extra large, the width is going to be 40 rem. And again, for the extra large devices, the text is gonna be 2 XL, and this mx auto. For the margin top is gonna be 4, and again we need to have this text shadow here. Padding left and right is gonna be 3. The font is gonna be medium. Now you can see that we have styled the description here. I think the text are long, so we need to cut 2 lines from here. I'm gonna delete this. Now you can see that we have a short line in here. Okay, now let's check if it's responsive. I'm gonna open the developer tool, and you can see that the banner is completely mobile responsive. Alright, now let's handle the animation part of this text. So open the terminal and you need to install the Framer motion. Okay, once you have it, you need to import that inside the banner.jsx. So for this heading one, we need to have a new component, and we are gonna use that component in here. Now inside this components, we need to have a new folder and call that animation, and we need to have a file called headAnimation.jsx. Generate the React code in here and just copy this motion. Okay, now inside here we are gonna receive this text, and we need to actually make an array of this text. So I'm gonna write count letters is equal to text.split. So this split is an array method that will help you convert a text to an array. Imagine there is a text of book, and if you add this text.split, you will have an array of b/o/o and /k. Okay, now we need to delete this text, and instead we need to map through all our letters. We are going to grab the letter and this index. Inside here we need to have a span tag and just write this letter. The key is going to be this index, and now we need to apply our Framer motion animation here. So all you need to do is just write m.span here. Okay, so the initial value is going to be opacity of 0, and animate is going to be opacity of 1. So the initial means that it will start from this point, from opacity of 0, and animate means that it will end up to opacity of 1. Okay, now to make it smoothly, we need to have a transition, and inside here the delay is going to be index times 0.05. okay, it's going to be index, and it will add a delay to every letter. Imagine we have an array of book letter again, and you know that the array starts from index 0, so 0, 1, 2, 3, and every time our code runs, this index will be times to 0.05. So it means that the 0 will be times 0.05, and then 1, and until our text is finished. Okay, so it will keep adding the delay using this index. Alright, I hope you understand that. Now all you need to do is just come back to the banner, and in here, instead of this text, we need to have this reusable component and pass this text. Okay, we have an error. The error is with the split, so you need to add this dot here, not this minus. Now if I refresh the page, you can see that we have this opacity animation. Alright, now let's add this animation to our p tag. So again, write m.p. So the initial is going to be opacity of 0, and animate is going to be opacity of 1, and the transition we are going to have duration of 1. Okay, now if I refresh the page, you can see that both the texts are showing at the same time. So we want to add some delay to our paragraph. You need to come back and just write delay here to 1.7. Okay, now if I refresh the page, now you can see once the first text is finished, the second page will be showing up. Alright, that's it for this part. Now let's move to the next part. Okay, we need to come back, and I'm gonna close this banner file. Inside this component, we need to have a new folder and call that about. So we need to have a file for about.jsx. Alright, and now I'm gonna change this div to be section and delete this text. Inside here we need to have a div, and inside the div we are gonna have a span tag with the text of about us. Now we need to display that in the browser. So I'm gonna open the app.jsx again and just import this about component here. Okay, now you can see we have the text about us in the browser. So I just come back, and for the section we need to have a class name. The padding for the top and bottom is gonna be 3 rem. The z index is gonna be -1. And now for this div we need to have a class name. The text is going to be center. Okay, now let's style our text. Inside the span tag we need to have a class name. The position is going to be relative. Text is gonna be center. Text 3XL. For 2XL devices, the text is gonna be 5XL. Okay, now you can see about us is in the middle, and we need to have a line in the middle of this text. Okay, so to make that we are gonna use the before pseudo element. I just come back, and in here you need to write before, and the content is gonna be this empty string, and before it's gonna be absolute. The height is gonna be 6 rem, and the border is gonna be 2. It means the width of the border is gonna be 2 before. So I just copy this. Now the border color is gonna be blue and 950. Okay, now you can see we have this line in here, and we need to move this to the top of our text. Okay, so now the top is going to be -3 rem. You need to add this before pseudo elements because we want to apply this style to all the before. Okay, and the right is gonna be 4 rem. Now you can see it's in the middle, but we need to move that a little bit. So the button is going to be 24, and now the margin from top and bottom is going to be auto. You can see the line is positioned perfectly. Okay, now we need to change the font family of this text. So inside the index.css, for the heading 1 and about class name, we added a different font family and font weight. So I just copy this class and write it inside this span tag. You can see that the font family has changed. Okay, so for 2XL devices, for before, the right is going to be 6.5 rem. Alright, down here we need to have some text. So in here I'm gonna have a new div, and inside here we need to have another div with a p tag, and we need to generate this lorem in here, and I'm gonna copy and paste this p tag again. Okay, and again we need to have another div with the lorem text. Of course this lorem text is gonna be inside a p tag, and finally we need to have a button for read more. So we need to add a class name to this div, the parent element of both text divs. Okay, so the width is going to be 90%. In large screens the width is gonna be 85%. Margin 0 auto, flex and flex column. For the medium devices, the flex is gonna be raw, and gap is going to be 5. Margin top is going to be 10. Text center. And for medium devices, the text is gonna be left. Text size is gonna be small, and for 2XL devices, the text is going to be XL. Now you can see the text are separated, but they are not positioned perfectly. So to divide both parts equally, all you need to do is just write flex 1 in both divs. Okay, now you can see that the both sides are divided equally. Okay, for the first div we need to have a flex again. flex is going to be column, and the gap is going to be 2. Alright, now they have a little gap. And now let's style this button. So we need to add a class name. The background is going to be blue 950. The text is going to be white. Padding from the top and bottom is going to be 2. From the left and right is going to be 5. And we need to set a hover. The background is going to be blue and 800. Okay, now I think the text is big. So I just come back and change the text to be small. Okay, now we need to add a little space between the text and the button. So I just come back. Okay, to add this space, all you need to do is just wrap this button with a new div and add this flex to the parent div. Flex is gonna be column and the gap is going to be 5. Now you can see we have a little gap between the text and the button. Alright, now let's check it in the responsive part. Now you can see that our about component is completely responsive. Alright, we are done with the about part, and now let's move to the next part. Okay guys, so in this part we are gonna implement the expedition part. I just go back, and inside the components we are gonna make a new folder and call that expedition. Inside here we need to have a file expedition.jsx, and again I'm gonna generate the React code. Now we need to import that inside the app.jsx. Okay, you can see we have expedition text inside the browser. Alright, now we need to change this div to section, and inside this section we are gonna have a new div, and inside the div we are gonna have another div which holds our image. So the image is gonna be logo, and I need to import that from my images folder. Okay, and then the image we are gonna have a heading 1. Alright, now you can see our logo and that expedition ladder in here. Alright, now down here we need to have a paragraph with the lorem text. Alright, I need to add more text, so I just copy and paste that. Okay, now let's style this. So I'm gonna add a class name to the div. The background image is gonna be mountain, which is coming from the config file. Width is gonna be full. The height is going to be 550 pixel. Okay, now we have the image. For 2 external devices, the height is going to be 900 pixel. BG no repeat, BG cover, BG center. Okay, now our image is in a good shape. So for large devices, margin top is going to be 28. Flex items end, justify center. Okay. The position is going to be relative. Overflow is going to be hidden. For medium devices, overflow is going to be visible. Now let's style the logo and the text. So for this div we are going to have a class name. Text is going to be white. Padding bottom 2. Text alignment center. Position is going to be absolute. For the bottom it's going to be 6. For medium devices, bottom is going to be 0. And Z index is 50. So this exclamation mark means important. Okay, padding Y is gonna be 7 rem. Alright, now for the logo image, the width is gonna be 8 rem. For medium devices, the width is going to be 12 rem. for 2 actual devices, the weight is going to be 16 rem. And MX auto. Okay. Now our logo and text is in the center. So for this heading 1, the text is gonna be 3 XL. For 2 XL devices, the text is gonna be 6 XL. The font weight is gonna be bold and capitalized. And also padding Y is gonna be 4. Okay. Now you can see we have a little bigger text in here. So for this paragraph, for padding X or padding from the left and right is gonna be 6. For large devices, the weight is gonna be 60 rem. For 2 XL devices, the weight is going to be 85 rem. MX auto, text SM. For medium devices, the text is gonna be base. For 2 XL devices, the text is going to be 2 XL. Okay. Now they are in good shape. Okay guys, the logo and the text are ready. Now we are gonna add the cloud animations. So as you can see, we have a cloud PNG image inside the images folder. And down here we need to generate a new empty array. Okay, so array 14.fill.map. Okay, this array 14 means that we are gonna have an empty array with 14 items inside. That fill means that we are gonna fill that with something. So in this case we are gonna fill that with image. .map means that we are gonna iterate through each single of those items. The key is going to be indexed. The source is going to be this cloud image, which we haven't imported. Okay, and the alt is going to be cloud image. Now let's import that image. Now you can see that we have 14 clouds images in the browser, but it is overflowing. To avoid that, you need to write overflow hidden in the section. Okay, now it's not overflowing. So for this image we are gonna have a class name of absolute. Right is gonna be 0, left is gonna be 0. For the bottom it's gonna be -3 rem. For small devices, the bottom is gonna be -6 rem. For medium devices, the bottom is gonna be -9 rem. For 2 XL devices, the bottom is gonna be -15 rem. Okay, now you can see they are in good position. And now it's time to add the animation. So I have already generated the animation code using keyframes inside the index.css. You can see we have in the 0%, the transform is gonna be translate -100%. And in 100%, the transform is gonna be 100%. Okay, so all you need to do is just copy this cloud animation name and come back to expedition.jsx. Inside this image you need to write style. The animation is gonna be this template string. Okay, just write the animation name. Following that, write I plus 15 seconds. So this 15 seconds will be plus with the index of our images, like the previous animation in the banner. Okay, and following that you need to add linear and infinite. So linear represents the age of the animation and infinite means non-stop. Okay, now you can see that our clouds are moving from the left side to the right side. Okay, now let's check it in the different devices. You can see that this section is completely responsive, but the texts are quite long. So we need to cut some of the text. I'll just come back and delete some of the text from here. Okay, now it's in a good shape. Alright, the final thing that we need to do in this section is we need to put a position sticky inside this about as. Okay, so to do that we need to install a library called GSAP. So I just come back and we need to install this GSAP. Okay, now import GSAP and also scroll trigger plugin from the GSAP. Okay, so to make this animation we need to import the use layout effect, and inside here at first we need to make a timeline for the GSAP. Const animate is equal to GSAP.timeline, and now we need to add animate.from, so it means the start point of the animation. As you can see, the VS Code suggested that we need to add our class here, the target twin. So our target is gonna be this section. We are gonna get the section using useRef. So const content ref is equal to useRef, and the initial value is gonna be empty string. Okay, now we need to connect that ref to the section, and the target is gonna be content ref dot current. Following that we can add our animation. So at first the duration is gonna be 1. Okay, now following that you can add other animation, like you can move from X position or you can move from the Y position. Okay, so if I write here X is equal to 200, now if I refresh the page you can see that the section is moved 200 pixels to the right side. Okay, but we are not gonna do that. Instead we are gonna animate based on scrolling. So when we scroll down we want the animation to happen. Okay, for that cause we have imported the scroll trigger from the GSAP. So at first you need to register the plugin using GSAP.register plugin and scroll trigger, and down here you need to add a curly braces inside the timeline. And for the scroll trigger we need to add the trigger to be about one class. So the trigger means that the animation will happen on this component. So we need to add this about one class inside the about component, and then the start point is gonna be top and top. Okay, and then the end point is gonna be bottom and bottom. Now we need to add these markers to see where exactly our animation is starting. Now you can see we have scroll start at the top of the page and scroll end in the middle of the page. So when our start point, which is down here, hits the scroll start, our animation will start. And if we scroll down you can see we have an end in here, and once the end hits the scroll ends the animation will be finished. Okay, but this end is too short, we need to have a long end. It means we need to scroll more down. For that cause we need to set the end trigger to be our content ref.current or our section. Now you can see the end is all the way down here. Okay, so now to do that sticky animation we need to toggle the classes. So I'm gonna write toggle. The target is gonna be this about, and we are gonna add this active class to this div. Now you can see we have an active class inside the index.css. So the position is gonna be sticky and the top is gonna be 0. And by the way this is gonna be about 1. Now if we scroll down and as soon as the start hits the scroller start, you can see that the about component will be position sticky. Okay, like this. Alright guys, that's it for this part. Now let's move to the next part. Okay guys, so in this part we are gonna implement our blog post. So I just come back to VS Code, and inside the components we are gonna have a new folder called blog, and blog.jsx I'm gonna generate the React code again. Okay, now we need to import that inside the expedition component. Now you can see we have the blog text in the browser. Alright. Okay guys, now I have a deployed version of this application. As you can see, we have three cars inside our component, and they are positioned evenly. You might have heard of even and odd. So you can see we have an image, a header section, and also a button. Okay, so this data all are coming dynamically. We are gonna store everything inside an array and then iterate through each single of them, okay, and display that in the DOM. And also we need to implement the clip part again in this component, like the banner. Okay, now let's get started. So the first thing which we need to do is I just copy and paste all the data. You can see we have title, description, image, and the path for our button. Now I'm gonna import all the block images from the images folder. Okay, and now I'm gonna change this div with a section, and inside here we need to have another div, and we need to iterate through the data, and inside here we need to have a div, and at first we are gonna have an image. The value is gonna be block, the alt is gonna be block.image, and down here we need to have another div. The heading one is gonna be blog.title. The paragraph is gonna be blog.description. Okay, and finally we need to have a button, and the value is gonna be read more. Okay, since we have an error with the images, that is because you need to write blog.img. Okay, now you can see we have all the images. Now we need to have a key inside here. Alright, now you can see we have a background image with the dark blue color. So I have already stored that inside the config file, and also you can see that we have implemented the clip path. So I have already stored the code inside the index.css. As you can see, it is inside the clip 2. Alright, now inside the section we need to have a class name of clip2. The width is gonna be full, the height is gonna be full, and the background image is gonna be this block bg. Now you can see we have the background image with the clip path and also that blue dark color. Okay, alright, now the background repeat is gonna be none. BG cover for medium devices, the margin tab is gonna be -6 rem. Flex item center, justify center, and the text is gonna be white. For padding Y is gonna be 8 rem, and the Z index is gonna be 50. Okay, now you can see that we have that clip part with the background image. Alright, okay, now let's style our block cards. So I just go back inside this div. The width is gonna be 90%. For large screen, the width is gonna be 85%. MX auto, flex wrap, cap is gonna be 5. Okay, inside the map we need to write a class name, and the flex is gonna be 100%. For the medium devices, the flex is gonna be 25%. So this flex 100% means that each single of these cards need to take the 100% spaces. Okay, now let's style this image. So I'm gonna add a class name to the image. The width is gonna be full, and the rounded is gonna be medium. Now if we take a look at our deployed version, you can see that we have positioned the cards evenly. It means the first card is up, the second one is down, and also the third one is up. So we have a property inside the CSS called even and odd. So even will target the plural index and odd will target the singular index. Okay, so we are going to target the medium devices, and even margin top is going to be 3 rem. Okay, now you can see that we have positioned the card evenly. Okay, alright, now let's check it in the responsive part. You can see that the cards are completely responsive. Alright, now let's style our text. So for the text div, we are gonna have a margin top of 5, and for the heading 1, we are gonna have a text of 2 XL. For the 2 XL devices, the text is gonna be 4 XL, padding bottom is gonna be 3, and the font width is gonna be medium, as well as this capitalized. Okay, now they are looking good. For this paragraph, the text is gonna be small, and inside the 2 XL devices, text XL, capitalized. Alright, now our description is looking good. Now let's style the buttons. Now I'm giving a class name to the button. Margin top is gonna be 4. Background color is slate 400. Width is going to be full. For the medium devices, the width is gonna be auto. Okay. Padding Y 2. Padding X is gonna be 3, and for 2 XL devices, the padding Y is going to be 3. For 2 XL devices, padding X is gonna be 4, and finally the cursor is gonna be pointer. Okay, now you can see our buttons are styled, but the text are looking bigger, so we are gonna add the text small. Now let's set a hover effect to our button. So I just come back, the hover property, and the background color is gonna be slate 400. Okay, and by the way, the initial color is gonna be 600. Okay, now you can see we have added this hover effect to our button. You can see that our component is completely responsive. Alright guys, that's it for this part. Now let's move to the next part. Okay guys, so in this part we are going to implement the theme component. Now as you can see, we have 3 images in here for our team members, and we are going to have a background image as well as some text that describe our team leaders. Okay, now let's get started. So I just come back, and inside the components we are going to have a new folder called theme. Now I'm going to import some images for my theme. So inside this section we are going to have a div. Alright guys, now we want to iterate through all the images. So for that cause, we need to have an array of our images. And now inside the div, I'm gonna iterate through all the theme's images. And inside here, we are gonna have a div. And inside the div, we are going to have an image. The source is gonna be theme, and the alt is gonna be theme image. Okay, so because we used map, we need to have a key in here. Now you can see that we have our images in the browser. Alright, now we need to have a class name for the section. For the large screen, the height is gonna be 650 pixel, padding y 6. For large screen, padding y is gonna be 0. For 2XL screen, height is gonna be 800 pixel. Background image is gonna be theme BG, BG cover, BG no repeat. For large screen, margin top is gonna be 5 rem. Okay, now we have a little space up here, and you can see we have a background image. Alright, so for this div we are gonna add a class name. The weight is gonna be 90%. In large screen, the weight is gonna be 85%. MX auto, and now we are gonna use grid in this image. And if I navigate back to tailwind.config.js, you can see we have a grid template column in here. So we are gonna reuse that in our component. So I just write grid calls theme. The gap is gonna be 5. Now I'm gonna give a class name to the image. The weight is gonna be full, height 23 rem. For 2XL devices, the height is gonna be 30 rem. And object cover. Now you can see that our images are in good shape, but still we need to position that in the center. So I'm gonna give a class name for this div. For large screen, margin top is gonna be -7 rem. Z index is gonna be 30, and width full. You can see that we have our images a little up here. The reason our image is not in the center is because I misspelled the MX auto, so I just delete this A from here. You can see now our image is in the middle. Alright, now let's work on the text. So down here I'm gonna have a new div, and inside here we are gonna have a heading 1 with this text, as well as a paragraph with lorem text. So I'm gonna copy and paste that again. Now you can see our text are in the browser. So we are gonna give a class name for this div. The weight is gonna be 90%. For large screen, the weight is gonna be 60%. MX auto. Background color is gonna be blue 950 divided by 60. It means we are gonna give a 60% opacity to this color. Text is gonna be white. Margin top 3 rem. Padding 4. Text center, flex column, gap 5. And finally round it large. Now you can see we have a blue background color with the opacity. Okay, we need to increase the font sizes. So for this heading 1, I'm gonna give a class name. The text is gonna be 2XL. For large screen, the text is gonna be 5XL and capitalized. Okay, for this p tag, for 2XL devices, the text is gonna be large, and I'm gonna copy this class name and paste that in the second paragraph. And in here I just write text SM for small devices. Okay, now you can see that our images and the text are ready, and they are matching with the original one. Alright, we are done with this part. Now let's move to the next part. Alright guys, so in this part we are gonna implement some images gallery down here. As you can see, we have 4 images with the opacity hover. So I just come back, and inside the components we are gonna have a folder called gallery. Now you can see we have gallery text down here. Alright, as you can see inside the images folder, we have another folder called mountain, and we have some images inside here. Okay, and we are gonna use that to be displayed in the browser. Again, I'm gonna import one by one. Okay, and similar to the previous component, I'm gonna store them inside an array. And inside this div, I'm gonna iterate through these images, and we are gonna have a div as well as an image tag. So the search is gonna be img and alt is going to be gallery image. Again, we need to have a key. Alright, and for this div we have a class name of grid columns theme. Background color is gonna be blue 950, and as you can see we have all our images in the browser. So I just come back, and for this div we are gonna have a class name cursor pointer, and for the hover we need to set an opacity of 50. I'm gonna give a class name for this image. The width is gonna be full and the height is going to be 60 rem. For two actual devices, the height is gonna be 22 rem. And object cover. Now you can see our images are in good shape. Alright, now let's check it on responsive. You can see that our images are completely responsive. Alright guys, so the final thing that is left is this arrow button. So as you can see, if I scroll down and click this button, it will jump to the beginning of the page like this. So first of all, we need to have this arrow icon. So for that, I'm gonna come back and open the terminal. Now I'm gonna install the React icons. Okay. Now let's search for that inside the browser. And I'm gonna look for arrow icon, and if you click this arrow icon, it will be copied. So just come back and import that from React Icons website, and make sure to add the first two letters of your icon's name at the end of this. Okay. Now down here we are gonna have a new div, and inside here we need to have a button, and we need to write this icon. Okay, now you can see we have an arrow down here. Now I'm gonna give a class name to this div. Position fixed. For right it's gonna be 10, bottom 20, transition all, and the duration is going to be 500. Okay, now you can see we have this little arrow down here. Now let's give it a background color. So I just come back and give a class name to the button. Background color blue 950. Text white. Text Excel. Cursor pointer. Hover BG blue 800. Now you can see that we have a background, but still we need to add some padding. Okay, so the padding is gonna be 2. Now our button is ready. Alright, now if you take a look at the original site, when I scroll down, this button will show up, but if I scroll up, this button will be disappeared. So now I just come back, and at first we need to have a use state hook, and down here we are gonna have a use effect. So inside this use effect we need to have an event listener to the window, and scroll. Following that we need to have an arrow function, and we need to return if window.scroll y is greater than 50. We want to set show arrow to be true, otherwise we want it to be false. Alright, so this event listener will work based on scrolling. As soon as the scroll y reaches to 50, this steady state will be true, otherwise it will be false. Okay, now let's unsubscribe this event listener using this return. Okay, but you can see this somehow like duplicate code, and that's not good. So I'm gonna store this return inside a separate function. So I'm gonna have a new function here and just copy this return in here. Alright, and instead of that object and arrow function, I'm gonna write this function here. Okay, and similar to that, I just delete this down here as well. Now you can see it's more clean than the before. So down here I'm gonna copy this CSS properties and delete them. I need to change this double quote to be a temporary string, so I just add this curly braces and temporary string. Inside here I'm gonna paste this CSS properties. Now we need to set a condition in here. So if show arrow is true, we wanna add translate x 0, otherwise the translate x is gonna be 20. Okay, now if I refresh the page, you can see we don't have that arrow anymore because that is hiding using the translate x. And as soon as I scroll down, you can see we have that arrow coming from the right side. Okay, now let's make the jumping functionality. So I'm gonna have a new function here. So inside here we need to write window.scroll function, and inside this function we need to have an object. So the top is gonna be 0 and the behavior of jumping is gonna be smooth. Okay, now I need to copy this function and add an onClick here. Alright, now if I click this button, you can see that it is jumping to the beginning of the page. Alright guys, now let's deploy this application. Alright, now all you need to do is open your GitHub, and up here click this to open this drop down, click new repository, and in here you need to choose a name for your project. In this case I'm gonna choose travel website. Okay, and down here you can add a description, and in here you can see we have public and private, so you can choose your repository to be public or private. It will not affect your deployment. You can deploy both public and private. Okay, so I'm gonna choose public in here. Now click this button to create this repository, and in this page if we scroll down you can see this long text. Just copy that, come back to your VS Code, open the terminal and paste this code in here. Okay, now you need to write git add and dot. It will add all the files inside the GitHub, and then you need to write git commit -m, and you need to write a description in here. Alright, and finally you need to push this code to your GitHub, and because it is a new repository you need to push this using this code. So I just copy and paste that, and you need to wait a little bit. Alright, when it's done, just come back to your repository, and if you refresh the page you can see that the project is inside the GitHub. Alright, now look for Netlify. You can see in here we have a login and sign up. So if you already have an account, click the login, and if you don't have, you can make a new account using sign up. Okay, so I have an account and I just click login. Alright, and down here click this add new site and import an existing project. In here you can see bunch of options. Just click GitHub, and in this search bar you need to look for repository name that you just created. Okay, click that one and click deploy site. Alright, we need to wait a little bit, and in here you can see a text. It's written site deploy in progress. If you click that, click this production, and in here you can see the progress of site deployment. Okay, Now down here you can see that Netlify build completed. It means that your website is now published. Alright, just come back, and in here you can see there is a domain setting. Inside here you can add your custom domain if you have one. Okay, and if you come back, you will see another button which is site settings. If you click that, inside here you can change the domain name of this website inside the Netlify. So you can click this change site name, and in here you can change your domain name. And if I click save, you can see that this site name is already taken. So I'm gonna choose another name. You can see that my domain name is changed. And from now on, my website will be deployed in this domain name. So if I click this, you can see it will display a published version of my application. Alright guys, that's it. I hope this video was helpful for you. And if you have learned something from this video, please make sure to like the video and give a subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.